How's it going, everybody? This is Rusty with FCP Euro, and today I'm going to show you how to service your Mk8 Golf R rear differential. In front of me on the table, I have everything we're going to need to take care of the rear differential service on our 22 Golf R. We have all the drain plugs. Yes, there are 6 drain plugs. Technically, there's 8 in the differential. We'll be dealing with 6 of them today. We have the gear oil that's going to be taken care of in the center compartment of the rear differential. And then technically, the vehicle has 2 clutches on either side of the rear differential, which we'll be servicing with the fluid in the white bottle here. We do have in the description in the kit which fluid is for which if you get it mixed up or if you need a quick reference. But we'll be also suggesting in the kit to get one of these fluid extractors. You may even want to consider purchasing 2 of these fluid extraction pumps, as it is not recommended to mix any of that fluid in these compartments in the rear differential. There is no actual service interval for the gear oil in the rear differential. However, the rear clutches are suggested every 4 years or 40,000 miles by the manufacturer. At FCP Euro, we do recommend at least 10 years or 100,000 miles. You should be considering replacement of the gear oil in the rear diff. Our car's got about 30,000 miles on it, so it's just gonna be like a health check. We're gonna make sure there's no damage in that fluid. When draining the fluid, you could even strain the fluid to make sure you have no metal contaminants and ensure that the differential is in good health. Now, as far as symptoms, honestly, if you have any symptoms of a rear differential, the fluid service will not take care of that. You may have something bigger going on, but this is a maintenance item, so it's something to consider when you don't have anything going on and to ensure that the life of the vehicle has a well-serviced history. Now that we've talked about the fluid on the table, let's talk about some tools we're going to need to take care of this DIY. As far as tools are concerned, not too many tools needed for this DIY. A couple of things not pictured here. Obviously, we're doing this on a 2-post lift. If you're doing it at home in your driveway, you're definitely going to want 4 jack stands to ensure that the vehicle is flat and off the ground. Also, you're going to want some sort of a drain pan receptacle to catch all of your fluid. And we mentioned in the beginning, we do have this linked in the description. It is not kitted, but something like this will make quick work of refilling the differential. I've got a 1/4 inch torque wrench here, a couple of choices for some 1/4 inch extensions. We've got a T30 and then the 5mm Allen. You'll notice that these are very, very small. They're very short cut. Something like this is going to be very beneficial. The shorter 5mm Allen will be very beneficial to have. As you'll see in this DIY, the fill section for the gear oil is actually very, very close to the prop shaft, so you're going to want that clearance. And then finally, we do have a 1/4 inch ratchet. So as you see, not many tools needed. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we've got the car up in the air. First thing I do want to make mention of is you're going to want the car completely level, whether you're working in the driveway or on a 2-post lift. Make sure that you have all 4 corners of the car up off the ground and as flat as possible. Reason being is that the actual fill position or the fill level is registered at a flat position of the vehicle. So when the fluid starts to escape from the fill plug, that's how we know that the fluid is filled. With that, let's go ahead and start talking about some of these drain plugs. But first, I do need to remove this little shield here to reveal the actual center differential fill plug. So it's a T30, and you are going to want something with some very low clearance, as there's not much room between the shield here and the rear of the differential. Cracking it loose, because I'm still, even with this shallow T30, I'm not going to be able to back it up all the way. All right, and with that out of the way, you can see a little bit more of the meat and potatoes on this rear diff. We do have these 2 motors which drive the clutches on either side, and we can actually see the fill plug for the gear oil on the rear differential. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you do have a chamber here, and a chamber here, which is going to be the 2 different fluids. The gear oil is going to be for the center, and then the clutch oil is going to be for the outer ones. And on the differential, it is labeled clutch oil, high point oil on the rear of the differential, which is the gear oil. So we're going to start with taking out all of our fill plugs because we want to make sure that we're able to fill the rear differential once it's actually drained. It would be very unfortunate if you drained all your differential drain plugs and were unable to get one of your fill plugs out first. So the drain plugs are all 5mm Allens. I'm going to go ahead and take out the fill plug for the gear oil and both of the clutch oil chamber. So this harness is a little bit in our way. You can simply release that there. Even release that one, giving yourself a little bit more room with that shallow 5mm Allen that I have. Just crack them all loose. Same on this one here. Now for the passenger side differential clutch chamber, we are gonna need a little bit smaller ratchet. It would definitely be helpful to at least loosen the exhaust from the exhaust hanger here. However, it is definitely still possible to crack it loose, although it will be in a little bit tight quarters. So I've got all the fill plugs loosened up. I'm gonna go back up with my hand, make sure I got a drain pan underneath because it may start to leak out a little bit of fluid. Fill plug out there, got a fill plug out here, and then one more fill plug over there. All right, all fill plugs removed. We're gonna start draining the center of the rear differential, and then we'll get back over to the clutch oil. And while we have the center draining, we'll take out the clutch oil drain plugs. That one's cracked loose as well. Now that we have everything draining, we're gonna let that continue to drain until it gets to a more formed drip like we have in the center diff here. Once these clutches stop draining, we're ready to put those fill plugs in. If you have a little bit of extra fluid, you could certainly flush a little bit through. However, all the fluid in the kit is gonna be just enough to fill it up. So keep that in mind as the vehicle ages. If you do wanna flush your clutch or gear oil, you may wanna have an additional kit. So I've got the 5mm Allen. All the drain plugs and fill plugs are all the same. We're gonna start putting the drain plugs back in. We'll torque them all to 15 Newton meters. Once you have the drain plugs torqued, we can wipe everything down, brake clean our drain plugs off, torque mark them, whatever you gotta do, but we wanna make sure that these are not leaking when we're putting that fluid in there. So make sure you're putting the correct fluid in the correct compartment of the rear differential. And we're gonna be putting this into the fill plug on the driver's side. Once that tapers off a little bit, we'll go ahead and install the 5mm Allen fill plug, and we'll torque that up to 15 Newton meters just like the rest. And while we still have some of the clutch oil in the actual fluid extractor, let's move over to the passenger side before cleaning this out and going back to the gear oil. So you're gonna have to guide this one a little differently. It's a little bit tighter with that exhaust there. And keep in mind, you do not want to burn yourself, so if the vehicle is warm, you want to be a little extra careful. Fill it up one more time. It's probably going to come pouring out on our exhaust now. So, just like the other side, we will let that taper off like it just did. We'll grab a new fill plug and we'll get that installed. This one's going to be a little tricky as the exhaust is going to be here in our way. So I'm going to try to use the Allen bit to guide it into the hole up here. Once you get it started, it's going to be pretty difficult to get a torque wrench in here. I'm going to do my best. If you're having some difficulty, just use your better judgment. It's not a very tight fastener. It's only a 5mm Allen. Don't over tighten it because you will probably have to come back and service it. But it's just a fill plug. It's not under immense pressure. So again, if you can't get a torque wrench in there, it's not a huge deal. And like I said, torque wrench ain't going to fit. I could certainly take the exhaust down, but not a huge deal. So I'm just gonna go ahead with the small 1/4" ratchet and snug it up. And if you've ever done spark plugs before, this is less tight than that. So I'm just using my 2 fingers to pull down on the ratchet and snug it up. That feels about 15 Newton meters. And as you can see, the exhaust is covered in gear oil from that clutch chamber. So we're gonna just clean it off as best we can. Be aware that when you start the car up, you'll probably have some oil still cooked in there no matter how much brake clean you put on it. So before we go ahead and do that, we do want to make sure we clean this out. A little bit of soap and water, but simply just not brake cleaner. Anything chlorinated will probably fade the plastic in here and disrupt the seals. So we'll go ahead and do that now, get this thing cleaned up. All right, now that we've got one more container of fluid left, the gray bottle should be your remainder. We're gonna get this primed and filled up with the gear oil. And just like the clutch oil, we're gonna fill this right up until it comes out of the fill hole. Just like the others, once it's down to a drip like that, we can go ahead and put that fill plug back in, and we'll go ahead and torque that to 15 Newton meters as well. Now, we're gonna go ahead and liberally clean our differential. As you saw, that fill plug got some on the harness here, but don't be alarmed. These are normally exposed, so there's plenty of weather packing in there to make sure none of that really gets into those electrical connectors. And while that's all drying off, we can start putting our harness back. If you recall, it just had these 2 little spots where it clipped onto the rear diff, and then we're gonna get that rear differential cover back on there. And finally, with the T30, we are gonna torque these shield bolts to 8 Newton meters. And that wraps up our rear differential service on our Mk8 Golf R. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to hit that like button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, get down in the comments section below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe because we'll have plenty more videos on this vehicle and many others like it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.